During this module, we will look at the key principles that underpin the ITIL framework and review a number of key definitions that will be used throughout this course.
It is a fact that organisations are becoming increasingly reliant upon IT in order to perform their activities, a point ably demonstrated by the strategic importance taken up by the Internet in most organisations today. However, it is not just companies who are becoming more aware of the role of IT. We as individuals are more aware of the role that technology plays in our lives and the dependence that many of us have on it. For example, how many people have smartphones? And how much do people pay to use the facilities that come with those phones? If we are not happy with the price we are being charged, we will, or indeed should, take our custom elsewhere. There is increasing competition and choice when it comes to technology. With technology becoming more and more complex, service providers need to ensure that they offer customers the best products and services at the best price for all parties. One key reassuring factor for customers and providers alike in this respect is the use of established best practice. The question that you might be wondering about is, where do we get best practice from? The first source comprises of the best management practice publications, also known as public frameworks. Examples of such frameworks include ITIL and other methods and guidance such as PRINCE2 project management, MSP program management, and MOR risk management, all of which offer frameworks for taking informed decisions. Standards are also a source of best practice in achieving certain specific goals, such as ISO 9000 for quality management, ISO 17000 and ISO 27000 for security management, and ISO 20000 for demonstrating quality in service management. ITIL provides a body of knowledge which has been proven to be helpful in gaining ISO 20000 accreditation. The final source of best practice is more specific to certain technical environments and is less portable as a result. Proprietary knowledge can relate to specific tools and environments, such as MSDN for Microsoft Developers Network, IBM Redbooks for IBM Technologies, and Notes.net for IBM Domino and IBM Notes.
A service, according to ITIL, is defined as being a means of delivering value to customers by facilitating outcomes customers want to achieve without the ownership of specific costs and risks. Let us look at the statement more closely. Let us also keep in mind an example that we can all relate to, namely domestic broadband. Facilitating outcomes refer to the results of using a service. In a domestic setting, an average family may have several uses for broadband. The parents may use it for website browsing, and the children may use it to enable enhanced game-playing experiences, such as Xbox Live or social messaging. These are different outcomes from the same service. Without the ownership of costs and risks is where we are directly insulated from any full-blown replacement costs. If there's a problem with broadband, we ring our service provider. Delivering value requires a little more explanation. When we talk of delivering value, there are two components that must be considered, namely utility and warranty. Both will be considered by the customer when choosing a service provider, although the balance between the two will vary from customer to customer. Utility is described as the service functionality. Referring back to our broadband service, utility could be features offered by the service such as web browsing, email accounts and cloud backup, for example. These are collectively referred to as being what is delivered. These key functions are what determine whether the service is fit for purpose. Warranty is referring to how that functionality is delivered. Companies that we may regard as risk-averse, such as law firms, are unlikely to use small, lesser-known providers of services such as broadband, simply because they require certain guarantees on performance of the service. Warranty represents how the service is delivered and is typically measured in terms of the continuity of service provision, the capacity and availability of the service, and its security. All four areas provide assurance that the service is fit for use.
Services can be classified as being supportive in respect that they are required by the service provider to provide other services to customers. Internal services are those services that are provided to parts of the same organization, such as training or finance. External services, on the other hand, are those services that support parts of a different organization, such as a service desk. Services can be categorized further and discussed in terms of how they relate to one another and how they relate to their customers. For example, core services would provide a basic level of outcome required by one or more customers. An example of this would be word processing. Enabling services are services that are needed in order for a core service to be delivered. They may not be visible to the customer, but are essential to enable the customer to consume the core service. Finally, enhancing services are services that are added to a core service to make it more useful or valuable to the customer. Enhancing services are not essential to the delivery of a core service and are added to a core service as excitement factors, which will encourage customers to use the core service more.
A stakeholder is any party who has an interest in the activities, targets, resources, or deliverables from service management or from a service provider. They may be users, customers, suppliers, or partners. Within the service provider organisation, there are many different internal stakeholders, including the functions, groups, and teams that deliver the services. Outside the provider organisation, external stakeholders may be categorised as customers, users, or suppliers. Customers are those stakeholders who buy goods or services. They define and agree the service level targets of the service. Customers could be internal or external to the business providing the service. Users are those stakeholders who use or consume the service on a day-to-day basis. And suppliers are third parties who are responsible for supplying the goods or services that are required to deliver IT services, such as commodity hardware and software vendors. We have already defined a service as a means of delivering value, so that customers can facilitate outcomes they want to achieve without the ownership of costs or risks. There are many services that we take for granted, such as electricity, public transport, and mobile phones. We pay our fees and we receive our service from our provider. IT has become a service in the eyes of the business community. What differentiates one IT provider from another is the value that is generated by the provider. Service management is defined as being a set of specialized organizational capabilities for providing value to customers in the form of goods and services. Taking this definition a step further, IT service management is defined as being the implementation and management of quality IT services that meet the needs of the business. To illustrate this, ask yourself why you favour one online retailer over another. Then ask yourself what they do better than other competitors, and then think of functionality, such as one-click buying, website layout, product range, etc. They make the service more valuable to the customer. You can then see how valuable IT service management can be to the business. Finally, making use of IT services enables a business to achieve certain outcomes. An outcome is the result of carrying out an activity, following a process, or delivering an IT service. Examples of such outcomes could be an increase in sales or an improvement in customer satisfaction ratings.
During the course, there will be many references to processes. Indeed, there have been some already. To ensure we all have the same view of what makes a process, consider the following activity: making a cup of tea. To make a cup of tea, you fill the kettle and turn it on. You take a tea bag and put it in a cup. When the kettle has boiled, you pour the water into the cup and stir the tea bag. Once you have taken the tea bag out, you add milk, sugar or lemon to suit your taste. What I have done there is string together a number of activities. They have been combined to result in a product being produced at the end, a cup of tea. That sequence of activities is a process. All processes have a series of characteristics. Take my example of the cup of tea. Something prompted me to make the tea. A trigger was present. All processes are event-driven. In a business context, this could be a process for registering new staff members, and the trigger was an email from the HR department. All processes seek to deliver some specific results. My cup of tea would be classed as a deliverable in just the same way as a batch of registered users in an IT system would. All processes are focused upon delivering against customer need. The process is performed because someone wants the final product. This could be the department that new staff members are to be placed into. All processes are measurable. In the example of new staff members, if there was a request from the HR department for 10 new staff members and 5 had been registered, the process is clearly 50% complete.
So, who carries out the activities that make up a process? Functions are teams or groups of people, and the tools or other resources they use to carry out one or more processes, or the activities that make up a process. In larger organisations, a function may be broken out and performed by several departments, teams and groups, or it may be self-contained within a single organisational unit, such as the service desk, where roles and responsibilities are typically defined. In smaller organisations, a group of people or even one person may perform more than one function. For the delivery of a service to be effective and efficient, the service provider will need to allocate the responsibilities for the activities of a process to the various roles within the function. A role is a collection of responsibilities and should not be confused with job descriptions, which may be composed of more than one role. Roles could be allocated to groups of people who are similar in some way. In ITIL, groups are referred to as people who perform similar activities, even though they may work on different technologies or report into different organisational structures or even different companies. A more formal type of group is a team. These are people who work together to achieve a common objective, but not necessarily in the same organisational structure.
There are 2 types of role defined in ITIL: specific roles, which relate to a specific part of the life cycle and will be discussed in later modules, and generic roles, which are relevant throughout the life cycle. The process owner is accountable for ensuring that a process is fit for purpose, i.e., capable of meeting its objectives, performs according to the agreed standard, and meets the aims of the process definition. This role may be assigned to the person carrying out the process manager role. The process manager is accountable for operational management of the process. There may be more than one process manager for a process, for example, covering different locations. The process practitioner is responsible for carrying out one or more process activities. This role may be combined with the process manager role. The service owner is responsible to the customer for the initiation, transition, maintenance and support of a service and accountable to the IT director or service management director for the delivery of an IT service. A person may undertake the role of service manager for more than one service.
RAKI is an acronym for the 4 main roles, namely responsible, meaning the person or people responsible for correct execution of an activity in a process. More than one person can be responsible for the activities in a process. An example being service desk analysts who log calls to the service desk. Accountable, meaning the person who has ownership of quality and the end result, basically where the buck stops. Only one person can be accountable for each task. This could be the service desk manager, for example. Consulted, meaning the people who are consulted and whose opinions are sought through two-way communication. For example, this role may be the users who call the service desk and offer information to those trying to assist them. They also potentially remain in contact throughout the process or activity. Informed, meaning the people who are kept up to date on progress of an activity or process. They receive information about process execution and quality. An example may be the recipients of the daily call summaries from the service desk. This sample RAKI matrix is for an incident management process where users call the service desk for help. The sample matrix shows how these 4 roles can be used. Firstly, you notice that there is always an accountable role assigned for every activity, and that it is only one person who is assigned that role. Secondly, can you see how there is more than one person responsible for the same activity? In this case, resolve, recover. As you would expect, the user has been consulted regarding the incident and may have been contacted for further information regarding the incident. Finally, a number of parties need to be kept informed and may be receiving reports or updates without the need to respond. This completes the lessons within this module. You should take the opportunity to reflect back against the module objectives. Consider whether these objectives have been met and whether you need to review any of the lessons. When you are comfortable with having completed the module learning, you can progress to the next module.